Mike stood in front of the glass display case, carefully examining every gun inside. The case consisted of 4 cabinets arranged end-to-end, brightly lit and containing at least 100 handguns. On the far left were the .22 caliber pistols, target models, 6-shot revolvers, and magazine-fed guns. One had a barrel shorter than 2 inches, while another extended nearly a foot. Mike reflected on the destruction that such small pieces of lead could inflict. Moving to his right, he noticed 3.25 caliber handguns, gleaming in a row, 1 chrome, 1 stainless steel, and 1 black. All 3 were compact enough to fit in a pocket, with 5-round magazines. Mike concluded that the .25 caliber wouldn't cause the level of damage he needed unless fired at very close range. He stepped further right, inspecting the .32 caliber guns, and then the .38s. At the .38 caliber section, he felt he'd finally reached weapons capable of meeting his needs. He recalled that police officers had once carried .38s, which must have been effective for their purpose. Next, he examined 15 different 9mm pistols on display, including revolvers, magazine-fed models, and even a single-shot pistol. Larger than the .38s and harder to conceal, they were accompanied by a selection of holsters, brown leather waist holsters and shoulder holsters in both brown and black. The power of these weapons was evident in their size and design. Some had chrome finishes, most were blue, and a couple were matte black. The last time Mike had fired a gun was during his time in the Air Force, stationed in Germany. Over the past month, he had spent time researching and familiarizing himself with firearms again. His eyes drifted to his right, where he noticed a long-barreled .44 Magnum, a .357 Magnum, and an Old West-style .40 caliber 6-shooter. These seemed more suited for show or intimidation than practical use. The 9mm was what he wanted. 10 minutes later, he was back in his Lexus. The gun would be ready for pickup on Friday. He had paid with a credit card matching the name on the driver's license he'd shown. Both had cost him $200 from a man in East LA. The 9mm itself was $850, but he wouldn't see the bill. The man whose name and address were on the license would. The rented Lexus took him to a downtown Hilton. Using another credit card under a different name, he registered and secured room 921. However, his real interest lay with the occupants of room 821 at the other Hilton in town. The next day, Mike approached the door to room 921, pulling on latex gloves. Inside, he carefully avoided leaving fingerprints. From watching CSI, he knew he might still leave skin cells behind, carrying his DNA, but he didn't think it would matter. He rested in the room for a while before heading downstairs for dinner. With a 4-day beard growth, rubber inserts in his cheeks to alter his facial appearance, and slightly overgrown, graying hair, Mike looked nothing like his usual clean-cut self. During dinner, he watched part of a basketball game he didn't care about, then used a house phone to call room 821. No one answered. Returning to his room, he began his preparations. From his suitcase, he pulled out a vacuum and a drill. Carefully, he drilled a small 9mm hole through the floor of his room into the ceiling of room 821 below. He had positioned the hole based on the layout of his room, assuming the floor plan was identical below. Using a tiny video camera, he confirmed the placement, 12 inches back from the edge of the bathroom sink. Anyone standing at the sink would be directly under the hole. The dust from drilling landed on the rug and, if all went as planned, would be vacuumed away by housekeeping long before the room was occupied again. Mike turned off the bathroom light, leaving the camera on. Through the monitor, he could observe the bathroom below without being seen. Mike had set up a motion sensor connected to the monitor. When someone entered the bathroom below, a red light blinked in his bathroom above. Quietly, Mike stepped into his bathroom and watched through the camera. A man stood at the sink, shaving and brushing his teeth. Shortly after, a woman entered and kissed the man. Both of them were naked. They lingered in front of the sink for 3.5 minutes. Plenty of time, Mike thought. He switched off the camera and went to bed. As he lay in bed, his thoughts drifted to his brothers Shane and Monica. They had met 3 years ago at a convention in Orlando. Monica had been working as a product representative for a company that sold specialized software. By the end of the conference, She had left that job to work for Shane. A year later, they got married. Over the past 2 years, Monica had undergone plastic surgery, enhancing her breasts and refining her face. She was often seen clinging to Shane's arm at public events whenever their PR team deemed it beneficial for business. Mike replayed the events of 2 weekends ago in his mind. He had gone to the Laint Inn in Orange County for a business meeting. While he waited in the lobby for his appointment, he noticed Monica enter the hotel. Less than a minute later, Shane's business partner, Paul, walked in and joined her. Monica took Paul's arm, and together they approached the front desk to register. Mike watched them step into the elevator and ascend to the 6th floor. During his business meeting, Mike had been granted access to the hotel's reservation system to fix a couple of minor issues. While working, he decided to check the reservations on the 6th floor. Paul Samuels did not have a room booked there, but Monica Samuels did. Curious, Mike dug deeper and discovered that Monica had stayed at the hotel 4 times in the past 2 months. Paul had been there twice during the same period. It was clear they were having an affair. Over the next 10 days, Mike kept tabs on them and found they were meeting at various hotels 2 or 3 times a week. Computers are amazing tools when you know how to use them, Mike thought to himself. He debated whether or not to tell Shane. One evening, Mike had dinner with his brother and lightly brought up the topic. A recent news story had been circulating about a wealthy man whose wife had been unfaithful. When he found out, he divorced her, but the settlement cost him millions. Shane's response was cold and direct. I wouldn't want a divorce like that. I'd want her dead. Hearing this, Mike chose not to tell Shane what he knew. That night, Mike slept well. The next morning, he woke up before 9 a.m., packed his belongings, and carefully erased all traces of his activities. Before leaving the hotel, he spread a small packet of powder in the room, skin cells collected from at least 20 different people. He also scattered 10 sets of small hairs, all sourced from discarded vacuum bags from medical offices. In the elevator, Mike removed his gloves and tucked them into his pocket. Later that day, he returned the rented Lexus at the airport. That night, he slept briefly in Terminal 1, Southwest Airlines, and then in Terminal 7, United Airlines, changing clothes and freshening up in the bathrooms of both terminals. On Friday, he rented another car and drove back to the gun shop to pick up the 9mm handgun he had purchased using a credit card under the name Jack Williams of Canoga Park. The gun shop was 80 miles from the Hilton. After collecting the weapon, Mike checked into the Hilton again and requested room 921. He knew the hotel's cleaning schedule. The rooms on the 8th floor were always cleaned during the 1 p.m. hour, while the 9th floor was done by noon. Once in his room, he drilled a small hole through the floor, just as he had done in his test run the day before. An hour later, he watched as the cleaning staff removed the rugs and wiped down all surfaces where dust might have fallen. Satisfied, Mike smiled. He positioned himself in the hotel lobby, choosing a concealed spot behind a cluster of plants. Hidden in the planter was a small video camera connected to his laptop, which allowed him to monitor the front desk discreetly. On his laptop screen, he also kept a spreadsheet open, just in case anyone glanced his way. At 5:10 p.m., Mike's patience paid off. He watched as his brother's business partner, Paul, arrived at the front desk with Monica clinging to his arm. She looked every bit like a trophy wife. Together, they carried a single small suitcase. After they checked in, the pair took the elevator to their room. Mike closed his laptop, packed up his equipment, and returned to his own room. From there, he called his brother's office. Shane picked up almost immediately. Shane Mitchell, his brother said. Hi, Shane. It's Mike. How's everything going? Not great, Shane replied. I don't have any proof, but I think Monica's cheating on me. Any idea who it might be? Mike asked, keeping his voice neutral. No clue. It's just a suspicion right now. She told me she's at some charity event down in Orange County. What are you doing tonight? I've got an all-nighter with my tax team. We'll have dinner delivered and work through the night. Mike paused for a moment before saying, Hey, about Monica. Call Pete. He's a private investigator. He can check her out and you'll know for sure. Yeah? You have his number handy? Mike glanced at the paper in front of him. I've got it right here. Mike gave Shane the private investigator's number and ended the call. Then he turned on the television and monitored the activity in the bathroom below through his motion sensor. The first person to use the bathroom was Monica, nude. She sat on the toilet, and even from directly above, she looked stunning. Mike had never understood what his brother saw in her beyond her exceptional looks, but choosing a spouse wasn't Mike's decision to make. When Monica was finished, Paul used the bathroom. Afterward, they returned, got dressed, and used the mirror for a while. Eventually, the lights in the bathroom went out, and Mike assumed they had left. He activated the motion sensor again and went back to watching TV. Mike's personal car was parked in the visitors' lot of the hotel. He carried the extra equipment down to the car and stashed it all in the trunk. Back in the room, he scattered more skin cells and hair to create confusion, wiping down everything he might have touched, even though he had worn gloves the entire time. All he needed to carry now was the video camera and the laptop bag. Inside the carrying case was an empty laptop sleeve, with just enough space to conceal the 9mm handgun. He also packed a square piece of thick plastic designed to capture the gunshot residue, GSR. Mike had learned about GSR from watching crime shows on TV. The motion sensor light flashed, signaling activity. Mike walked into the bathroom and prepared the weapon. He turned his attention to the monitor and watched as Monica, completely nude, entered the bathroom. She stood at the sink, staring into the mirror. A few moments later, Paul came in behind her, wrapped his arms around her, and held her close. Monica turned to face him, put her arms around his neck, and kissed him. Mike pulled the camera out of the hole he had drilled in the floor and replaced it with a gun. Ensuring that the GSR would not get on him, he steadied the weapon and pulled the trigger twice in quick succession. The sound was deafening. Mike resisted the urge to check the scene and instead began packing everything as quickly as possible. He left the room, walked down the hallway, and encountered no one until he reached the elevator. The first elevator that arrived was coming down from the top-floor nightclub, packed with people. Mike joined the crowd, blending in seamlessly. When they reached the ground floor, he walked out with the group. 10 minutes later, he was on the road. Late the next morning, Mike heard a news report on the radio. Millionaire businessman Paul Samuels had been killed, and his companion was in critical condition at an Orange County hospital. Mike picked up his phone and called Shane. "Shane, I just heard on the news that Paul Samuels was killed. Is that your Paul Samuels?" "Yes," Shane replied, his voice flat and emotionless. "The radio said he was killed, and his companion is in serious condition. Is it anyone we know?" "It's Monica." "Monica?" Mike asked, feigning surprise. "Yes, Monica. They were screwing around in a hotel bathroom when someone shot them. The police think it was a professional hit. I'm coming back. I'll be in LA tonight." "Damn, Shane, I'm so sorry. Is she going to make it?" "I don't know. I haven't been to the hospital yet. If you go, don't drive yourself. It's too emotional a time for that. Let me get back as soon as I can, without breaking every traffic law." "Yeah," Shane muttered, before hanging up. When Mike left the hotel that night, his car's gas tank was nearly empty. He filled up in Barstow, paying with his credit card. After speaking with Shane, he refueled again before heading home. As time passed, more details emerged. Paul had been deeply in debt to loan sharks and had been embezzling money from Shane's business for over a year. Despite their investigation, the police never charged anyone for the hit. Monica eventually recovered, but was left with lasting consequences. She bore a large, ugly scar running down one side of her face, and one of her breasts was gone. The bullet had entered through her chest and exited through her hip. Monica's recovery didn't soften her reputation. She would never have been much of a mother, and Shane wasted no time ending the marriage. He paid for a 6-month lease on a cheap apartment while the divorce was finalized. When it was over, she got nothing. Mike and Shane never saw her again. There are brothers you can screw over, Mike thought, and there are brothers who won't let you down. Over the years, Mike occasionally wondered if he would ever tell Shane what had really happened. The answer came unexpectedly during a fishing trip. Shane surprised him by saying, "It was done to perfection." Mike wasn't sure if his brother was talking about the fish he had caught, or the fish he had shot. They exchanged a knowing look, and the truth became clear without a word being spoken. As they say, blood is thicker than water.